Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am your host, Monique Denton Davis, founder and CEO of Embrace Your Cake and Sisters Inspire Sisters. Listen, I am, of course, always excited for these Sis Table Talks. This one is really special to me because we have the phenomenal Dr. Natalie Lillavoice, okay? Not only the curator of TEDx Deer Park, but also the founder of an amazing organization, Zahara Crown. Am I saying that correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And also, I mean, there's just so many different things that Dr. Natalie does, but I want to welcome the audience. I want to thank everyone for joining Sis Table Talk. We are streaming live on Facebook and the Embrace Your Cake campaign group, Sisters Inspire Sisters group, as well as YouTube, Sisters Inspire Sisters. So please like, share. If you ask questions on Facebook or your comments, I can see them and I will definitely ask Dr. Natalie. So and if you are in New York, I'm super excited about this. We might be getting some snow tonight. I,
Oh gosh.
I know. I love, love, love the snow. So, Dr. Natalie, take it away. Just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, what all of the things that you do.
Well, thank you so much, Monique, for having me here. After participating in Sisters Inspiring Sisters and being a part of the book project and the writing and everything else, and meeting so many people, so many wonderful people, that network is amazing. It's been a whirlwind of activity ever since then. But prior to that, I had retired in just this past year. I retired in July. And I had been in education for over 30 years. I had been a teacher in the classroom. I had taught multiple grades, all the way up through 7th and 8th grade. I taught at Hofstra University. I did undergraduate and graduate courses, all related to education. I'm a curriculum specialist. I've been a speaker and moderator for many years. And currently I'm an educational consultant, and my company is Zahara Crown Incorporated. So through Zahara Crown, I want to be able to support families as we get through this whole thing with COVID. And I want to be able to support them in navigating the system, right? Because it's a system. And the system, honestly, was just really not designed for minorities. So it's harder to get through the educational system in a lot of ways for a lot of different reasons. And, peeling back those layers for families it can be very difficult. They're not privy to certain information. They just don't have the same access and the same information. So hopefully I can come in and kind of level the playing field for them in some ways. I'm a literacy specialist. I am a reading specialist. I taught reading for many years. Let's see, what else? Like I said, I was an adjunct professor in some universities, so I have that background as well. I'm also very interested in multimedia educational technology, coding, girls' issues, cultural diversity, women's empowerment. Many, many organizations that I'm a member of or network with are related to those kinds of things. And more recently, I've started to do some writing, and I've been in a few anthologies, including Sisters Inspiring Sisters, Love Letters to My Girls, which is a beautiful anthology that has my letter is a tribute to my daughter, who is an entrepreneur herself, who started her own business during COVID because of COVID. And I have another chapter coming out in another anthology coming up, and hopefully a book launch in my future of my own.
Yes, I love it, love it, love it. So
Busy, very busy.
there is so many things that that you speak about, so many things that you cover, and it's just an honor just to even be connected.
Yeah,
And I really,
that. That's very sweet.
your entire everything that you do, and I call it, it's a movement. And who you are is your brand. And your brand, everything that's connected to your brand is about education, awareness, and empowerment, whether it's for women or girls. I just want to say hello to all of our Facebook viewers. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Lisa. So, our topic tonight is women of color leading. And if you can just talk about some of the challenges that we face, in leadership areas,
Mhm.
and then just talk about how it impacts us, not just professionally, but personally. What has been some of your experiences, and what types of tips can you offer us in leadership roles?
Sure. So I think one of the things that women and Black women in particular need to be aware of is this level of consciousness, right? So all of a sudden you see all these wonderful things happening, whatever. So what's happened? So we talk about years ago that the word was woke, right? Everybody became woke. And women are finally becoming woke, but in a very different way. So that consciousness is like that is acknowledging their own power and being and saying, you know what, yeah, I can do that. And conscious means to be aware and responding to your surroundings, right? In the past, we've been like suppressed, we've been oppressed, we've been repressed, we've been kind of held down, and whether it be by relationship or time or society or culture or the corporate suite or whatever, whatever it is, it's always like be quiet, sit back, do the best you can, and kind of survival.
Absolutely. Be
Right.
seen and not heard.
Exactly. Very
Right.
much. And we have people that actually talk more specifically about voice, but that's a whole other a whole other conversation. But
Right.
becoming conscious is becoming aware of yourself and your skills and then the world around you and then doing something about it, right? So women have become more conscious of like, okay, I don't like this. Yeah, I go to work every day, I deal with my kids, the house, the husband, the boyfriend, whatever, the car and the bills, but they're not living, right? It's just kind of a survival. It's like, okay, this is how I get through life, but life can be different. Life doesn't have to look like that. It
Right.
doesn't have to look like just survival. It's like I can thrive,
Right.
and so many, many women have come to the realization, and this is what I mean, but when I say woke, it's like
Mhm.
I can do better. I can do things differently. I
Absolutely.
don't have to be part of the situation that is just this grind, this everyday boring drudgery until what? Until death? Until
Until
what?
that's it. Right.
It's like this is
Right.
it. This is what my life is going to be. Like, what are they going to write? She was a great administrative assistant. What's
Right.
going to be
Right.
on my tombstone? Like, what is my legacy for my kids? And when you start to think more deeply, you start to make change because you're not satisfied anymore with what is. You start thinking what could be. Like, how do I change what this is to what could be? And
Right.
so I think that's what's happening, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of growth in entrepreneurship. We're seeing women, taking charge. We're seeing women starting businesses. They, according to Forbes, Black women in particular, were among the fastest growing entrepreneurs. That says a lot, in the
Absolutely.
past few years. We're talking about anywhere from 2017 to now, and there's
Right.
been an explosion more recently. But there is a lot of statistics to support that this is a new for society in general. It's a new phenomenon about coming into their own and understanding that, okay, business is not this lofty goal that I will never reach. Like I can't own a business, or I can't start this, or I can't do that. And you're finding networks where women are supporting women. Women are getting,
Yes.
yes, women are getting into these
Yes, we
roles
are.
where I was like, okay, now I hold the purse strings. So you're coming to me for money to start your business. So
Yeah.
that's where it gets exciting, because it's like when you go to ask for money or you go to a venture capitalist, it might be a Black woman, and
Right.
she may have a very, you know, um, an interest, even more so because she's seeing somebody else and she's lifting up, which is something you see more in women tend to do that more. Black women, and women of color seem to have this like, let's lift everybody up. It's not just me,
Right.
and that changes the playing field in a lot of ways for a lot of people.
And and that is who we are. We are the most forgiving people. And that's who we are. We are, and I had to really come to terms with my focus in terms of my organization and who I really want to inspire and empower. And of course, I want all women to win, but I understand the things that we've gone through. But one of the things that you said when you talked about being woke, and I'm just loving the comments, sisters inspiring sisters.
Yes.
Also, another question is, I think COVID made us think. And tell me a little bit about this, Dr. Natalie. What do you think about this? I think Lisa says, I think COVID made us think of alternatives, and it gave some of us time that we did not have. So, what's your thoughts on how COVID
Absolutely.
impacted our current woke status?
100%. I mean, when you were given your walking papers, or you were told, well, and if you were on the low man on the totem pole, low woman on the totem pole, and you were sent home, we're like, okay, what am I going to do now? You know, because now this business that was my grind, and this is how I was bringing money in and paying for things and living my life, it doesn't work anymore. So
Right.
COVID actually disrupted a system that wasn't serving us well in the first place, right? So
Absolutely.
if you think about it that way, and yes, it was not, it was a hard thing. It was not a great thing. There's loss involved, there's grief involved, there's stress involved. There are a lot of these other things, but Black women have dealt with that before.
Right.
We've dealt with grief, we've dealt with loss, we've dealt with this, very difficult situations, and, making lemonade out of lemons, right? So
Right.
when COVID came, it was just another force to make us think, how are we going to do this differently? Like, how do I do this differently now? Because now it's critical,
Exactly.
so it's like, okay, maybe I do go start a business. I have to,
Mhm.
my kids are home. I have to figure out how to teach them. Maybe there's another Black woman out there who's doing that, who's doing the homeschooling. Like, what are these other organizations? And we're very determined. And I think there's a lot of perseverance. And that's historical. You can go all the way back to the very beginning, and you can look at Black
Right.
women as the perseverance, the level of commitment, the level of dedication, the level of stick-to-itiveness that's there way back. If you talk about women in slavery, you talk about women before
Right.
slavery,
That's right.
Black women have that in their DNA. I talk about that when I talk about leadership. It's like, it's there. And COVID kind of reminded you, like, of your history, right? It's like a little Sankofa. It's like, we're going to kick you back and let you see, like, what you really have to offer. And so women started to do different things. They started
Right.
to, apply for the minority and women's business licenses and things like that. They started to investigate. They started to talk to each other. And that's the biggest thing. If you remember back in slavery, they would separate everyone. They don't want you to talk to anybody, right?
That's
So
right.
now when you create these networks and you bring everybody back together, Monique knows how to do
Mhm.
this piece, and Natalie knows how to do that piece, and this person knows
Exactly.
how to do this piece. And you're like, oh,
Exactly.
this isn't hard at all. The information is there.
So
So go
what
ahead.
you're saying is so critical. So there's two things that I wanted to bring up, and one is I was listening to something the other day, and it talked about how African Americans by the year 2035, right now, that they're predicting that we're going to have a zero net worth. So of course now we're in, I want to say, I believe it's 17,000 to 19,000 compared to 171,000 of whites. But what can we do to change those numbers? What can we do to change them? And then the current state that we're in. So Black women now it's kind of like a power to the people, right? And
Mhm.
we want to network and we want to stick together and we want to empower and we want to share resources. But do you think it's because we also in the pandemic went through George Floyd, right? It's a George Floyd, Mike Floyd. We went through that.
George Floyd. Mhm.
George Floyd. We went through that. We went through, Black
Breonna
Lives Matter
Taylor,
was
Black
there,
Lives
and
Matter.
then
Yes.
we had the Me Too movement. What is going to sustain us, and what's going? Because there's a group of us, and some of them are on the chat. Like also my sister Chantel. We have entrepreneurs here, Lisa, that have put skin in the game for a long time.
Right.
Right. And we have women now that are like, you know what? We're sticking together. We're part of this empowerment. But how do we sustain the momentum of this current state that we're in so it actually starts to change the economic status of our families? So that 2035 number of zero, so we can have an impact on that. What can
So
we do?
you raise a great question, and the simple answer to that, and of course it's not that simple, but the simple answer to that is consistency, right? It's easy to start a movement. You can get people excited, you get on social media, things go viral, and then they go away. That's the way things
Right.
work, right? That's the ebb and
Exactly.
flow. So you can't lose that excitement and that momentum. And one of the things that in the studies that I was looking at, it talks about the number of women that we're in the startup industry, but we're not in the long game. Okay, there were only about 3% of businesses, long-term businesses that were Black owned and women owned. So that's very telling. It's that, okay, great, we can start, but there's some roadblocks that still need to be navigated. And where are those roadblocks, and who can we get to help? So when you have these networks that can sustain each other And when you get to the next level, where's the person at that next level? There's somebody there at the next level who's going to be able to help you when you get there. That's the biggest issue. And the same thing is happening across multiple industries right now. You have teachers leaving the profession at a higher rate than ever because of COVID. And because of the wear down of having to deal with everything that comes with it in their own families, plus in the educational system, it's very, very hard to take care of the people when, and teachers take care of the kids, but you're also dealing with your family, anybody that's sick, you're dealing, so the nurturing part is just like booming. It's like overwhelming, and you're on overload all the time. So a lot of people are like, I can't do this anymore. You have people even in the health profession, they can't do it. It's too much for too long, and it's not going away anytime soon. So all of those things also impact Black women in particular because of our caring, because of our nurturing, because of the kind of people we are. It's like, we want to help. So you have this diverse focus that's happening. So it's like, I have my business, but then I have my family, but then I have people that are sick, and then I might have a school, and then I have a community. So you want to help in these other arenas. So a lot of it is focus, which is what I talk about in terms of consistency. It's like, okay, you got to pick a few, like pick the most important ones to you, right? It's obviously family is going to be number one, but then you have to pick where else you're going to expend your energy. Otherwise you're going to burn out. And that's another typical thing that happens, that, you start this high momentum, all these people are involved and you're doing great. And then you burn out because it's just like, it's too many things at once. And I'm seeing some of that happen even with my own business after retiring. It's like, all these little things are coming up. Oh, you want to be here. You want to do this. You want to come here. And then it's like, okay, wait, I got to sit down and see what actually, brings me back to my purpose. Like, what is my purpose? What is my goal? What do I want to achieve? And which things are going to enhance that, as opposed to just, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. But then I'm not moving anywhere. I'm really just treading water.
Just doing a bunch of stuff. Right. Yeah. And what I like that you said about focus is, I truly believe, so there is no work-life balance, right? There's no balance. We know that. So let's just be honest. And when we have these things, and like you talked about, Black women, we're very nurturing. But when we have all these areas in our life that are impacting us day by day, there are some things that are going to get more focus, and there's some things that are going to get less focus. And it's okay. I mean, let's be honest. You can't work a 9-to-5, run your business, take care of your family, and then you might even be in a situation where you're a caregiver, and unless you have a housekeeper, every day your house is not going to be spotless every day.
No. Something is going to give, right? Like right now, I have piles and piles of laundry, and I like, okay, I'm just going to do the underwear today because I don't have that kind of time every day to just put everything away. But you have to be, and if you're a perfectionist, because, I'm a Virgo, and Virgos tend to have this, like, everything's got to be in its place. You got to let some of that go. Otherwise, it's going to just drive you crazy, and you're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to be stressed out, and then you're not going to perform in any other area either. So you have to let some things like go by the wayside, So if you have, you just laid out like a whole bunch of things that are super important, right? You're a caregiver for someone. You've got the 9-to-5 that brings in probably the money for the house. You've got kids. The kids are home trying to figure out this remote learning. It is daunting. I ran a remote school before I left, and it wasn't the reason I left, but it kind of contributed to it. I was ready to retire, and I wasn't sure. And the last year that I worked as an administrator was I took on a remote school. So I had over 300 students, 21 classes, 21 teachers and everything, all remote, all day, every day. So just like, if you can wrap your mind around what that might look like, and then all of the crazy things that happen, because the power goes out in the neighborhood. So none of those kids have computers. So now what? Then, or a teacher's power goes out. Teacher doesn't have a computer, or something happens, and all of these very, very unique problems that never would have happened in a school system necessarily, or are compounded because it's all tech-based. So now you have any tech problem becomes a big problem, then you have other issues. It's like, privacy issues, you're being able to see into people's homes, maybe more than you want to, things like
exactly.
Yeah, we won't go into that, but it was just, it was just such a complicated thing to manage. And the kids were getting the best that we could deliver. And it still wasn't as good as, going to school, because, going to school is a staple in their lives. Let's face it, we have decided that this is the way we do school, right? And we could talk about that another time. Like, there are a lot of things missing in our school system, but
absolutely. And that is, like you said, so that is definitely another. And every time I do these, I'm like, okay, we have to have a part 2. So this probably should have been like A, and then we'll have B.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, and this is so funny. So Chantel says, this year I won't be doing all of those things. Chantel, I can high five you with that.
Yes.
I will not. And then I have one of our other sisters, Natalie Empress Nuna, who says, good evening, beloveds. I agree that it's easy to get things started, but maintaining is another story.
Yeah.
I am blessed to have Black women that are open to truly networking and sharing business knowledge with me, but a lot are not willing to assist and share knowledge. Networking is so important in achieving greatness as Black businesswomen as a whole. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Natalie. Now, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, let's unpack that whole thing, because this is women in color leading. What can we do? So this is the thing. I know there's 2 areas. So it's like, for those of us, we want to be in a space where we've done a lot of hard work and we know we need to start doing wealth work, right? So if this is our business, we also need to generate income. However, there's also a space of, if I have this knowledge and I have this information, there's certain things, and that's part of the Sis Network. That's also part of why we launched our first grant and awarded 3 business owners, Black women business owners, with $1,000 each micro grant. But there's a part of it that's like, you know what? I have some resources and I have some information that you don't have. And I want to share that. How can we do that without, always having to charge for everything? But then also understanding, and I'm going back and forth, also understanding that, we're also want to be in a position where we can generate income.
So you have a couple of things happening there, right? So the keeper of the knowledge is always the person that gets to decide, like, what do I share and what do I don't? So I can give you some of it, but maybe the rest I charge for. So monetizing your own value is super important to think about. However, it needs to be moderated by, what are your goals, right? If your goal is to, let's say somebody has a goal of, I want to see 1 million women have a startup. So that goal will mediate how do you do your business, and what are you going to charge? Are you going to make it accessible to all? And there's a lot of ways to do that. Like, a level 1 would be, I have an open forum. I invite everybody, you can come. But if you don't come, then maybe the next time it's not free, then you didn't come to the free one. So now you might have to pay. So, unfortunately, you can't just give everything away either, because then your value, you're taking away from your own value and what you can offer, right? So people have to see that you're valuable, and you go back and forth. So a lot of startups have now started to also do a nonprofit side. So they have a profit side and a nonprofit side. So in the nonprofit side, they can offer that kind of advice. They can, connect you with other people. They can connect you with resources. But, there's a level of handholding that can't happen. If you have a business, it can't be that you're also handholding all the way to the end, right? At some point, you gotta get the bird out of the nest. You gotta say, look, I gave you, here are the resources, here's everything you need to get started. You could come back, we can have conversation, or you can consult with me or whatever. But at some point, you need to get off the ground, right? And because a lot of people will sit and not do anything. They'll come to every workshop, they'll come and they'll listen, they'll take the resources down, they'll take notes and everything, but then they go back to their 9 to 5, right? So they haven't even started. And then when that becomes a paid situation, they're like, oh, now I have to pay for that. But at this point, you should have been somewhere where you're actually generating your own revenue, where it would make sense for you to purchase your own professional development, because that becomes part of your business plan, right? Part of your business plan is going to be to grow, and growing is going to be getting the resources and the networking and spending time with people that are going to help you grow your business. So now you should have been somewhere where you're already generating some kind of revenue where you could pay for that, And if you're not, then you're not moving in the way that you need to be moving. And I know that may be hard for people to hear, but yeah, it may take a year. It may take you 2 years. It may take
Right.
more, whatever time it takes you. But at some point, you have to do something, right? That's the commitment part of it. The commitment part is, you have to decide, like, when are you going to do this? It's nice to dream about it, but the dream is not going to put any money in your pocket.
Right. Exactly. Now it is, and of course, now we're down to 5 minutes, but one of the things that I'm like, my goodness, one of the things that you talked about, and we have some of the comments, investing in masterminds together work well for some. Absolutely. You can barter if someone has something that can support your business or clientele. Information is priceless. So what is it with this space that we're in? Do you think that Black women now, and we talk about the topic is women of color leading, do you think that we're more in a space where we want to share? So there's 2 areas, workplace. Have we gotten over the point where, if another sister comes in at a level that you're at, I'm no longer afraid that, okay, I'm the only token one here, so I don't want her to take this space. Have we moved away from that? And then the other part is, even in business and sharing information, have we gotten to a space where it's like, you know what, sis, and I use sis a lot, and I use sis, and some people are like, you know what, I'm not your sis. I call Black women my sisters because I am one and only child. No, not only daughter. I'm the only daughter. My brother, if he's listening, he's probably like, what about me?
What about me?
I've always wanted to have sisters. So I just, every sister is my sister. Thank you, Chantel. And like, okay, sis. So I've always wanted a sister. So even the Sisters Inspire Sisters selfishly also gives me a family of sisters that I can, work with and network with. But in terms of sharing information and not being selfish and not feeling like, well, if I share too much information, then this sister is going to pass me, or this sister's going to do what? Going to be at another level.
That's an old, that always was the way of thinking. It's like, and it's society that sets us up against each other, right? Society sets us up as like, okay, we're going to hire maybe 1, maybe 2. So if you are that one, then you don't want to co-opt your own position by giving information to somebody else. So that's the way society has limited us in thinking. And like, if I help someone else, they could surpass me, and then I could lose my position or my ranking. So they made you a big fish in a very small pond, right? And you bought that metaphor, and you're like, well, I don't want anybody else in my pond, but it's a much bigger ocean out there, first of all, so I don't know that we're looking for each other's jobs necessarily, right? So my giving somebody else educational information or whatever, I don't feel that I'm compromising myself or my role by doing that. And that speaks to women's confidence and the lack of confidence. And I'm going to give you a quick metaphor, and I know we're running out of time. But if you people are driving along an expressway, right? You might be driving behind somebody. You got plenty of room between you and the car in front of you. And out of the blue, they hit the brakes. And what is that about? A fear. It's a fear. Something happened that made them afraid, whether they weren't paying attention or they picked up the phone or something happened. They hit the brakes out of the blue. Now you have a choice. You have plenty of room between you and them. You're not speeding or anything. You could also hit the brakes, right? Or not, and see what happens, right? A lot of times, and I play with that sometimes when I'm on the highway. I'm like, all right, I've got 3 car lengths, to this car. They just hit the brake. Do I need to hit my brakes too? Sometimes, yes, sometimes there's something else that's building, if you have something on, you'll know that. But if there's absolutely nothing happening, that's their fear, right? So now you're going to respond to their fear by hitting your brakes, right? So you're putting the brakes on for an unknown, right? That may be nothing. And seconds later, they let the brakes up and they keep going. And, you've hit the brakes too, and you do it. So it's like this weird routine that happens. So it's like, oh, they hit the brakes. It must be something to worry about, but it could be something very personal than just that one car. And I liken that to the way we do things. It's like, oh, if I give out way too much information, I got to put the brakes on this person because they might be able to do that. And it really doesn't necessarily work that way anymore. The other piece of that is the fact that every single system, because of the Black Lives Matter movement, is all about diversity, equity, inclusion. So they're not looking to usurp an existing person to add somebody new, because that wouldn't look good for them. But what they really want to do is build a cadre of very smart people, and bring and show that, yeah, we're into diversity, we're into equity. So it is a better time now than ever to share information, because you're not going to lose who you are, but it's really about your confidence. And not worrying about giving somebody too much information. I don't know what too much information would ever look like. I mean, I'm a researcher. I'm always collecting information. I'm happy to share it with everyone. You do what you do. I'm not looking for a Grammy. So if you take the information, you get a Grammy.
But you know what is, and so you hit on all the things that I wanted you to express. And what to me was really important is that if you win, I win. Exactly. If you win, I win. Either you're opening a door for me, or you're showing me, or you're teaching me. And then the other thing is, when you look at our circles should not, we should not all be on the same level, know all the same things, right, and do all the same things. We need to be able to learn from one another and to uplift one another, and sharing information. And I'm not saying oversharing, because Lisa is right. You cannot share everything for free. Some people hit rock bottom to hit that come up and may have paid deeply for their knowledge. And that's true. Right. Confident people do share freely. And yes, you win, we win, we all win. So that's what it's about. It is a bigger picture than just me and you, Dr. Natalie. The information, the networking, it is a bigger picture that we're setting up for our children. I'm going to say grandchildren. I'm not even trying to act like, for our grandchildren, for their children, and to change that number in 2035, where we're predicted Black families to have zero net worth. It's not just important, it's critical. And then it's also critical that we create opportunities for each other.
Absolutely. One of the things that I believe in 100% is that economic empowerment, right?
Yes.
It has been so long. There has been no information in school. You don't learn about anything in terms of finances, right? So anyone who approaches you with what sounds okay, it's like you go with it. So it's like, oh, insurance person approached me. Yeah, I have insurance now. How much are you paying? What is it? What is it? What do you have? What do you actually have? But there is a certain fear about, oh, I have to have this, otherwise I haven't arrived, or it's something that I'm supposed to have if I'm making it, or I'm doing well. But sometimes you're spending a lot of money for very little. And there's a whole level of education that comes with that. So that's a new area that I've actually branched into, is financial literacy, both for kids and for adults. And I've been doing workshops, and it's amazing. People in our circles and what they understand, and their misconceptions and myths about how money works. And it's like, money's supposed to work for you, not the other way around, And exactly. That is a whole mindset that some people don't even have. They don't even understand that. They go to work, the check comes, they pay the bills, and that's their life. I'm like, no, you pay yourself. You put money here. Like, banks are zero. That's like nothing. You're actually losing money if you're banking your money. You need to put your money in other places that it's working for you, so you live off of the proceeds of that investment, right? So there are so many other things that we have been kept out of. We just don't know that information. We don't have that information, and that's happening too for minorities and for women of color. Like, there are a lot of women of color that are in the finance industry now, and they're sharing that information.
Absolutely.
So now you're like, oh, I could do this, or I can invest here, or I could go there. And part of that is COVID again. You're seeing all the online brokers, right? You're seeing Robinhood and Stash and Acorns and Ameritrade. Everybody's jumped on this bandwagon. That's another disruption that's happened as a result of COVID. It's like people had time. So they were able to look into, like, okay, well, I've never understood the stock market. Let me learn about the stock market, and let me invest the money. Let me see how it works. And so those fears, because that's another big fear. Like it's like a black hole. Like you put your money in your stock market, it just like disappears. You don't know what happened to it. Who has it? Where did it go? What does it mean? It's just this little line, So people are like, I don't want to put my money there. It's just going to go away.
Right.
But now people have a better understanding of what that means, how it's impacted by something like COVID or political things, and how those things impact your money, whether or not you're in the stock market. So you might not be in the stock market, but your banking is being impacted by the very same things, right?
Exactly.
And people didn't get that. And I think more and more people are finding that financial literacy piece. So it's a piece that I'm very passionate about. I've started doing a lot of work on that. I'm going into the crypto and NFTs and things like that, this coming year. So it's exciting to be able to share that information.
So what I would like to do as we are coming, and this was great. So I think I heard a part 2 and a part 3, and we have to talk about financial literacy. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's another good topic. Is if you can leave us with 3 tips that can help us, either tips or strategies for women of color that are in leadership roles, either professionally, either as an entrepreneur, and even, in our families. 3 tips or strategies that can help us.
Okay, so I would say the commitment, right? You have to make that 100% commitment, and you're going to need to have your family on board, or whoever it is that's in your corner. You're going to have to build that. They're going to have to be as excited as you are for your wins, right? So that they're there for your losses, because there's going to be some not wins, right? It happens. So there's going to be some times where you need that support, and you don't need people detracting from you when it's a negative, right? You don't need, oh, well, I told you so, or this. You don't need to hear that, right? Exactly. You need that positive. You need those affirmations, and that could be from your network, but hopefully you can get your family to buy in as well. And the second is confidence, right? We have to operate from a position of confidence at all times. You may not feel confident. It may be your worst day. You don't feel well. You got cramps, whatever. You always got to put your best foot forward, bring that winning smile, and get in there and seal the deal, right? Especially if you're going in and you're looking for venture capital, or whatever you're doing. Some of my absolute worst days, I've actually gotten the job. I've gone to an interview, not felt well, like depressed, sad, whatever. And I go in there and, fake it. And, people are like, oh, we'd like you to come work with us. I'm like, really? I'm like, how does that work? But you know what? Because somewhere inside you is that person. You may not feel it that day, but you have to bring that confidence, bring your A game at all times, right? And the third thing I would say is consistency. You have to be consistent. If you want to deliver a level of service that you want people to come back for and to pay for, it has to be consistent. You can't be this way one time and then, oh, I forgot, or I didn't do this, or I'm late. It has to be consistent, and it has to be consistent quality. And I think that's super important, especially in the arena we're in.
And it takes the work. So we have, I want to say, commitment, we have confidence, and we have consistency. Dr. Natalie, so this was amazing. I want to thank you so much information.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I have to take out my notepad and go back and listen to the replay and take notes, because I wanted to take notes as you were giving so many good tips. And then I want to talk again. First, I'm excited for those that are watching. We have in February, I'm not sure of the exact dates, but Dr. Natalie is going to be my co-host.
Yes, I'm excited. Very excited.
I'm looking forward to that. In February, I do want to also, because it is Valentine's month, I want to do some things on Black love and relationships, which would be pretty interesting. We'll add another little mix in there. But I want to thank you so much for all of this information.
My pleasure.
There's so much more we have to talk about. We didn't even talk about, I know that there are women interested in TEDx. There's so many different things. So
TEDx, yes.
My goodness, there's a laundry list. So we have to come back. I want to thank you so much. Thank you so much. This wonderful information session. I appreciate you. You are phenomenal. Thank you so much for
thank you.
Yes, being a part of the Sister Network. And I look forward to our next show, and also to some of the things that are to come this year. So everyone, we have a lot of great things coming up. Please stay connected to Sisters Inspire Sisters. You can go to our website. We have a couple of live events coming up in 2022. Yes. We also have our second anthology, and there's a lot of things that we are working on. So thank you so much, Dr. Natalie. We will definitely talk soon. And ladies, I will see you next week. Remember, like and share, and think about joining the Sisters Inspire Sisters Network. I'm your host, Monique Fitton Davis. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.